Morrissey's on next.
I've been dreaming of a time when the English are sick to death of Labour and Tories.
The new single by Morrissey, it is Irish Blood, English Heart, and it is the highest charting song that Morrissey's ever had as of yesterday, and we're very, very pleased to welcome Morrissey to XFM for the first time. It's good to have you here. Welcome.
Well, it's very nice to be here.
Now, it is that single, number 3 yesterday in the chart. I believe the closest before that was Suede Head, which was number 5.
That's correct.
So you must be feeling very, very pleased with yourself now.
Well, I'm very pleased, and it's fascinating at this stage in the game for it to be happening to me. And so many people seem to be interested, which is fantastic. So I am quite happy.
Do you get interested to the level that you would have listened to the radio yesterday to hear where the single was? Does that kind of stuff still matter?
Well, not terribly. Not terribly. I mean, as long as I generally know what's happening, I don't need to listen to every single radio show to hear somebody say the M word. Mm-hmm. I'm not that self-obsessed.
Right.
But generally, I'm really happy.
After being away for so long and coming back, and as you say, everyone is interested now, you've been back in the NME and on the TV and things like that. Have you kind of become overwhelmed by the amount of attention that you're suddenly receiving?
Well, not really overwhelmed, but very, very surprised, because I did go through a period when I couldn't get arrested. Well, maybe it wasn't as quite that bad, but almost. So the tide seems to turn and the dust settles and all those other cliches, and things are cliches because they're true, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Do you think in some ways there could be a whole new generation of Morrissey fans that are going to come to the forefront this time around? Because whenever I read stuff in the press, it's always Morrissey, the ex-Smith singer, and the solo career and blah, 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 blah. But it strikes me that having been away for so long and now you've got all this attention, you could get young kids that you could sort of save them from the pop idol abyss in a way and lead the way for a new generation.
It's true, because not every single 12, 13, 14-year-old is moronic. When I was that age, I wanted something that had an edge to it and was interesting. And so I think young people are always sort of too easily dismissed and never really catered for. As far as the ex-Smith thing is concerned, I don't mind that, because even in America, McCartney is always referred to as ex-Beatle, so that must infuriate him. But as far as the audience is concerned, especially in America, they're very, very young, and it's fascinating to me.
I guess it's quite good for you to attract that young audience here as well, because you've got something to say, that there's more of a depth to you that they're not going to get if they just end up watching someone like Will Young.
Well, that is absolutely true, isn't it?
Yeah. So you are the Quarry, the new album which is out today. How old are some of these songs? Were you writing over the period when you didn't have a record deal? Do some of them date back years?
Yes, some of them are 4 years old, but some of them are just from last year. So it's a mixture of those two.
And this idea that it's the definitive Morrissey album, is that because you had so many songs to pick, to choose from? Well,
not really. It's because it was certainly with the previous 2 albums, I made 2 albums under very strenuous situations, and the record companies weren't interested in them. So when the record company isn't really interested, you sort of deflate slightly, because they aren't rallying round, they're not eager to hear the finished thing, and they don't plan anything for it. So your spirit drops a bit. So this time around, the record company have been obsessively interested and supportive every step of the way, and I've never had that before.
When you're making the new stuff, at what point did the band get involved with things? Like, do you write all the words and then show them what you've done, and they put music around it?
No, not at all. I hear the music first, and I do the vocal melodies then, and the words. But everybody's freely involved as much as they want to be, and the musicians are very dedicated, and they work every hour of every day.
It strikes me as well, there's kind of very varied, if you like, musical landscapes on this album, more so than I think you've had before, and that really attributes to making it as good as it is in terms of what the band have done.
I think also that music generally has opened up so that everything is there and acceptable, and everybody takes it and enjoys it. So it's not as snotty as it once was, or snooty.
In terms of the words on this album, if we take You Are the Quarry as an isolated album and compare it to any of the other albums previously, the lyrics seem to me to be more direct and deliberate this time around on a lot of songs. If you listen to How Can Anybody Possibly Know How I Feel or Irish Blood English Heart, there's no two ways to take those lyrics. They're not ambiguous like you have been before.
Well, I do think the direct approach is the best approach, especially because lots of people generally just half listen. So I think it's very important to be as direct as you possibly can. And also for me, honestly, I do feel like an essayist or a poet. And many people will laugh when I say that word, but I really do. And I document everything that happens to me and every emotion that I feel, and throw it into recorded song. So I see it very, very much as a vocation, not really a job. And when I hear musicians and singers talking about their job, I think it's the worst thing you can say about making music.
It just seems that this time around everything is more direct, and before there could be two different people could interpret songs in a completely different way, whereas on this album there are a lot more songs where there isn't that alternative opinion.
But also I think these are very serious times and very critical times, and there's so much crap in pop music, and there is so much crap in the charts that I think for me to be as clear as possible is the best I can do.
Let's play another track from the album. You Are the Quarry is out today. Morrissey, our very special guest tonight on XFM. This is You Know I Couldn't Last. Brand new music from Morrissey tonight. It's Music Response. Ian Camfield here, and Morrissey, our very special guest this evening on XFM. That track, the last track on the album, is that kind of the track that really relates to the title of the album, in the sense that you're talking about managers, critics, even fans, in the sense that you were the Quarry, but now they are? Is that the link?
Yes, because certainly in the mid-90s I had been through so much, and towards the late 90s I'd received lots of criticism, and lots of people were telling me it was over. And I often find that when that happens, because everybody follows and everybody says the same thing, that the audience began to say it. And even though in a live sense they have never deserted me, they've always been there, but I did receive criticism from them. And I felt that I was going through so much personally that I often wondered what people expected. Sometimes people really do expect blood.
Right. And did it really get to that point where there were people saying it's over, and that was what made you kind of go, right, I'm going to take some time off from this?
No, I didn't really ever take time off, to be honest. I mean, whatever happened to me was just a natural course of events, and I don't feel as if I've been away, and I don't feel as if I'm coming back. So, but there was a point when a lot of people were saying very negative things about me, and I always knew it wasn't true, and I always knew that the things would become even again for me.
But obviously, as an emotional person, you must have felt a degree of hurt, even though in the back of your mind you knew that this wasn't going to last forever.
Yes, but nonetheless, it's quite difficult to experience when it happens.
Yeah. Do you see every album as a chance for settling scores in terms of what you write in the words?
Well, not really, but it's just important to me to document exactly how I feel, and if I do feel a sense of rage at certain things, then I have to say it.
And there's an autobiography coming as well, which
I'm afraid so. Yes.
Well, I mean, I kind of figure
it's just all me, isn't it? Me.
Well, it's certainly your time again, isn't it? Well. So it's the good time for the book. I always get the impression that whenever there is an autobiography that's coming out from anyone, there's a sense of, I wonder what they're going to say about me in it, and so on and so forth. I would imagine that the Morrissey autobiography must be instilling large amounts of fear in so many people.
Well, that's to be hoped. It really is. I mean, that's partly the purpose of the autobiography. So revenge is nice.
Do you think it's maybe your independent, strong character which has resulted in you having so many enemies out there?
I think it is, yeah, because I think people really only like you when you're slightly pathetic and you're saying, please help me. But when you say to people, forget it, I don't need you, then they become enraged and they want to dislodge you. And certainly in this weird music business, when everybody has an ego the size of the planet, if they feel rebuffed by you, and I've been through many managers and damages and so forth, that it becomes their life obsession to get you back.
Really?
Well, you say really, but you must know it's true. And I don't know why you're laughing. But you can.
Could you define the kind of people that like you and dislike you? Are they always similar in their characteristics?
Well, it's difficult now because surprisingly the audience is very, very broad, and there's very, very small people and very tall people and very almost senior citizens. It seems to be every shade and persuasion, which is fantastic for me. But nonetheless, the media always associate me with goth doom merchants and always assume that I'm an acquired taste, which I don't think I am.
Well, it seems that now, so more than ever, that the evidence is completely to the contrary of that, with the amount of people that are suddenly buying into Morrissey again. So
yes, but we still seem to be living in times whereby people can't take too much reality in pop music, and it's much simpler and it's gone a lot thicker. And it seems that people who are really dense make fantastic advancements. But I'm convinced it's only financial support that they have.
Isn't it just from the business point of view that those kind of people are easier to sell to stupid people who buy it in the masses?
Yes. Well, I mean, it's that simple, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
Let's play another track from the album. This is How Can Anybody Possibly Know How I Feel? Brand new Morrissey tonight. You Are the Quarry. The album is out this week. Morrissey is here, special guest on Music Response tonight. When you moved off to LA at the end of the 90s, was it a kind of feeling that in England, as we've spoken about, people were saying it's over? There's a big kind of British sense in which you get, knocked up and knocked back down again, and also I think that the British, it's a very British thing to kind of praise people for a certain set of qualities and then a few years later criticise them for those same qualities. Was LA a kind of sanctuary for you because that's not in the Americans' nature to do that? Well,
it's not, but I mean the most annoying thing about the British criticism is that everybody says exactly the same thing, and when one music paper attacks you, the rest of them do, and then everybody says the same thing, and then when somebody says, oh, you're back and you're on form and we love you, then everybody says we're back on form and we love you. But so it was partly all of that, but also I wanted to turn 40 somewhere else,
right? And
there seemed to be less reasons for me to stay in England, however much I absolutely love it.
What was your take on the kind of music scene in the States at the time? Because you're obviously very disillusioned with the mechanics of how things work on this side of the pond. Is it better over there?
Well, it's never been better, absolutely never, and it is all about money and nothing else. And it's heavy rap and disco and dance and so forth, and there doesn't seem to be anybody with any degree of personality or any views, which I find fascinating.
Well, it must be a really good place for you to go and people watch, because you must be one of the biggest people watchers, and if you go to LA...
Well, it's no good, because in LA you can't really walk around. Whereas here, you walk around and you're in the midst of people and the cut and thrust of everything, and it's fascinating. Much more interesting here, I think.
But can't you just go and sit in a branch of Starbucks and watch what comes in and goes out and make observations?
Yes, you can, but not much comes in and goes out, because everybody drives around and so forth, and the people are less interesting, to be honest. Yeah.
And it's harder to observe people through the windscreen, I guess.
It is. It is, especially with my eyesight.
Do you get out to many shows over there? Because every so often we see in the Enemy, Morrissey was spotted at the back of the Franz Ferdinand gig. You seem to pick up on these small British acts that must be very small on that side of the pond.
Well, I've always had a really keen ear and nose, and it was interesting to see the Strokes before they were signed, and they were absolutely fantastic. And yes, I see most things, because everything passes through Los Angeles, and they only just play very small gigs, but they're very interesting.
What about the bread and the cheese? I have to bring this up, because they don't do it very well, do they?
Well, food in America is terrible. Everything is terrible. So when I come back here, just to go to Marks and Spencer's and the Stainsbury's and all those And I did say Stainsbury's. The food is fantastic.
Yeah, it just struck me as a British vegetarian.
Yeah.
It must be very difficult, because you're going to want your bread and you're going to want your cheese. And
Exactly, but I mean, everything, so many things in Marks and Spencer's are for vegetarian. Can we mention Marks and Spencer's?
Yeah, we can mention Marks and Spencer's.
Everything is for vegetarians. And in Tesco's and, you know, all the main... Whereas in America, they don't do that.
Really?
They don't have the little vegetarian V, which is disgraceful. But they don't acknowledge vegetarians at all in major supermarkets. So I find the food really difficult in America.
When you come back here, and particularly now you're back on this trip, and everything does seem to be falling into place for you again, do you sort of wander around and think, oh, maybe I'd move back here now? Are you happier being back here on visiting?
Well, I think I feel snatches of that every time I come back, but I'm not so egotistical that I think, well, I'm in the charts now, I'll come back because somebody must like me somewhere. I don't really measure the worth or value I have as a human being by the top 40. But it's a minor consideration.
We're going to play another track from the album now. I believe this will be the second single. First of the Gang to Die is going to be the next single from the album.
That's absolutely true. I don't know how you know that, but it's true.
Well, because I did the research.
Well, that's how you know it.
First of the Gang to Die. This is from You Are the Quarry, new Morrissey, which is out today. That was First of the Gang to Die from You Are the Quarry, the new album by Morrissey. Morrissey, we're delighted to say, is here on XFM tonight. The timing of this album release, did you really spend all that time in LA trying to get a record deal, trying to make it come together, or did you kind of feel like 2 years ago, right, I'm going to start working on some new material now?
Well, no, nobody really believes me, but I did do the rounds of all the majors, and I did really try to find a place, find a label, but they were all shocking. And I just couldn't. Was it?
I mean, I read you said something like some of them wanted you to get a whole new band, and it was kind of like, you can come into our world, but on our terms.
Yeah, well, all of them said that. They all said yes, but no more of this, no more of that. No, and I'm thinking, well, that is me. Yeah. That's the real me, and I just found it really frightening. But over the last 5 years, the pop climate throughout the world has been so difficult that I think lots of people found themselves very frustrated. And also the sort of an older stretch of musicians who disappeared completely. All the kind of giants of the late 80s and 90s, they just disappeared. Thank God.
Every review that I've read of this new album, everyone is praising it, and they all say, oh, you know, it's as good as Your Arsenal or Vauxhall and I and stuff like that. Does it annoy you that the Maladjusted and the Southpaw Grammar albums seem to constantly get overlooked?
No, I understand it with Maladjusted because it was inferior, but Southpaw Grammar, I was very pleased with it, apart from the sleeve. But I think generally, even when reviews are good, people say silly things. Yeah. So you can't really expect somebody to have every line of every review to be absolutely spot on, and so.
The artwork thing as well is a big thing, I know, because you were disappointed with what they did with the picture on Maladjusted, and you admit you even let yourself down for Southpaw Grammar. Yes. You took charge this time. Was it your idea, the gun artwork that's on the picture? Absolutely, yes. I wanted a picture with strength and resolve, and what better than a Tommy gun? You also seem this time around a lot more comfortable with doing interviews and being kind of part of the media game, that you know, doing Jonathan Ross coming in and talking to me and stuff like that. That you didn't really do any interviews around Maladjusted or Southpaw Grammar. Is that kind of attributed to a faith in Sanctuary, who now look after you?
Yeah, because as I hinted at previously, the labels weren't interested in the past, and they didn't have any kind of they didn't have a list of interviews for me to go to. So, but this time around, that the label are so interested in the album and believe that everybody should hear it, and the hour is now, and I'm swept along by that.
So when they put down the long list of things that they'd like you to do, you go begrudgingly, okay, I'll do this, do you? Or
yes. No, I don't really say begrudgingly. I do it with 50% fear, but most of the things get thrown in the bin.
Talking of the fear, I want to ask you about the NME, the going back and doing that. First of all, why did you decide that you would break the silence and go and do an interview with them after so long?
Because they're completely different people now, and it's a completely different magazine, and life has jumped on. And they were very nice in their approach to me, and I thought, well, it's about time. And I also felt that this album is so fantastic and absolutely the best of me that why hold back?
And when you did the interview, were you very nervous about talking to them again?
I was anxious because part of me, the lack of trust from previous years, and they did try to wipe me off the face of the planet. Yeah. And I mean, if they'd heard that I had jumped off a cliff, they would have been thrilled. But it's a different time now. It really is.
And doing Jonathan Ross, the first ever TV chat show, or doing the NME, which was more daunting for you?
Definitely, as you can guess. Say it.
Jonathan Ross?
Yes.
But you look great on there.
Smoke screen.
Even my mum called me and said his voice sounded fantastic.
Really? Well, that's the market I'm chasing. No, I was a bag of nerves, to be honest.
Well, they're nasty situations to be in, those kind of talk show things, aren't they, when you've got all that attention from...
It's certainly a world in itself.
Yeah, and having to sit in a green room with Dale Winton beforehand can't have made things any more comfortable.
I think he was more uncomfortable than I was. Because he was sat near me.
This is The World is Full of Crashing Balls. It's more new Morrissey on XFM. Brand new Morrissey from the album You Are the Quarry. He is our special guest tonight on Music Response on XFM. Meltdown's coming up. Yes. Franz Ferdinand, The Ordinary Boys, Libertines, people like that. Are these the kind of bands from Britain that have made you more excited and rejuvenated your interest in things that are going on here now?
They definitely have. Yes, they definitely have. And Meltdown is a mixture of that and of the things from the past that I like. And I also approached Alan Bennett, who's doing a night, Nancy Sinatra. I mean, it's very, very interesting. Performance artists, Ennio Marchetto, lip syncer. Have you ever heard of lip syncer?
No.
Absolute fascinating genius. And James Maker, Linda, the Libertines, as you mentioned, the Cockney Rejects.
Love the fact the Cockney Rejects are there.
Fantastic, very, very underrated. They made some fantastic singles, I think. And Damien Dempsey, who is a fantastic singer from Dublin. Do you know of him?
Yeah, he played the Borderline a few weeks ago, a month ago or so.
Yes, absolutely fantastic. So it's a very, very strong bill, and it's going to be great. And not to forget the New York Dolls.
Absolutely. Now, can we reveal who is actually in the New York Dolls? Because we've heard stories about Izzy Stradling, ex of Guns N' Roses, is taking the place of Johnny Thunders and so on and so forth. What's going on?
It was very, very difficult to find somebody to take the place of Johnny Thunders. And initially, Chrissie Hynde was going to do it, but then she felt that she really couldn't do it. So ultimately, I don't know who they've decided upon.
Right.
But there are 3 surviving members. 3 older members have passed away. But there are 3 surviving members. And David Johansen, the singer, supported me in New York last week, and he's absolutely in fighting fit.
That's really good. And also the popularity has led there to being 2 New York Doll shows as part of Meltdown, right?
And now they're talking about a 3rd because the tickets went so quickly.
Well, if you want all the details on the Meltdown Festival, xfm.co.uk. We've been speaking about it for weeks, but you can get the full rundown and all the dates and stuff like that's there. The Nancy Sinatra connection, is it true that she randomly one day called you and said, I want to meet, and that sort of started the friendship?
Absolutely, yes. She was in a hotel in London, and she just tried to reach me and asked me to come to the hotel.
And do you know why? Was it what?
Well, excuse me, I don't really know why, but she had every single CD, and she knew everything.
Right.
And she's a fantastic person, has become a great friend, and she's releasing a single on the Attack label in July, which is a track from You Are the Quarry, her version of, obviously. And but Meltdown, interestingly, is her very first live appearance in England, which I didn't know.
No, I was...
But she's a great person.
Is it true that she plays with a full-on rock band as well?
The drummer of which is Clem Burke, whom you know from...
Blondie.
Very good. So she and her tickets for Meltdown have gone fantastically well. So we're all really encouraged.
It must be good for you as well, having people like the New York Dolls and also Sparks up on the stage. Will you be sitting there watching it thinking, years ago I was the one writing to the NME saying these bands need the publicity, you should cover them, they're great, and now they're playing your event? There must be a good sense of pride in that side of things.
Yeah, there is massive pride, but I think I won't be sitting on it. I'll be on the front row with a tartan scarf, swaying backwards and forwards, and God bless me.
So the Manchester show's coming up on Saturday. It's 15,000 tickets sold out in 63 minutes.
I believe so.
Maybe contradicting your idea that you can't go home that I saw you quoted as saying in Mojo.
Yeah, and I misquoted it. It wasn't Thomas Mann, it was somebody else. But nevertheless, you sort of can go home, really. So whoever said that initially was obviously inebriated.
Well, everything looks very bright, and you seem very happy. What's the future for Morrissey? Obviously, you're doing the festivals and so on and so forth. But once you've done what we know you've got on the schedule, what do you think the future
I'm sure
holds?
Everything will collapse and go back to how it was, a state of absolute abject misery.
You don't really think that?
No, I don't. The sun is shining every day. Don't ask me how. Don't ask me why. But it seems to be.
And just to conclude, the closing lyric on You Are the Quarry, the royalties bring you luxury, the squalor of the mind, is that, and then the track fades, right? Is that kind of an indication of the fact that you are very happy now, but there's no kind of inner peace, and so therefore there's more Morrissey to come? Because I guess if you're completely happy, then you'll stop making albums.
Well, that's very, very astute of you. Very, very astute. Quite true.
Yeah. So are we going to have to wait 7 years?
Probably.
Okay. But then there'll be more squalor leaving your mind and onto CD.
Please, God.
Well, thank you very much for coming in tonight. It's a great honour to have you at XFM.
Thanks so much.
We're going to play Come Back to Camden. The new album, You Are the Quarry by Morrissey, is out today.
There is something I wanted to tell you. It's so funny, you'll kill yourself laughing.